One thing we can guarantee you've seen a lot of recently is bodyweight squats. We're going to have a look at how we like to teach it. We're going to begin by looking at the stance front on. The first thing we want to do is make sure that the feet are roughly as wide as the hips. All right, if you were to look down at your heels, you'd be able to think, yep, my bum will fit in between there. The next thing is the angle of the feet. I go for roughly 1 hour on the clock when I ask people to turn the toes out, but the thing that I'm looking for is for when weight settles under the arch of the foot. So if Danny has her feet too narrow, turn your toes in please, love. You can see that the majority of the weight is on the outside of her foot. If she goes too wide with her feet, then the majority of the weight is tipping onto the inside of her foot. So if she has her feet turned out roughly 1 hour on a clock, she'll be able to have good contact through the base of her big toe, her little toe, and her heel. That's going to allow her to create a strong arch in the foot. And we do that by softening the knees and then externally rotating from the hip. Sometimes you've heard this cue referred to as spreading the floor. But what we're trying to achieve is stability in the frontal plane. So if I was to come over and push Danny, she wouldn't move. From here, whilst maintaining this tension, we then want to look at positioning the pelvis and the rib cage. For that, we're going to turn Danny side on. We're going to get her set back up in the position that she was in. So feet are turned out 1 hour on the clock, heels are just outside the width of the hip, and she's externally rotating, wrapping her femurs around to create tension from her hip down into a strong arch at the floor. What we want to look at next is the position of her pelvis. If you find yourself in this position with your knees locked out, chances are your hips will tip forward, right, creating an arch in the lower back. So to give you the ability to create a neutral spine, we're going to soften the knee and then using an exhale, bring her into a slight posterior tilt to create a neutral lumbar spine. From there, we want to check that the rib cage is down. So if she gives me another exhale, and she engages the obliques. If you're unsure what it feels like to engage your obliques, you can always cough, or imagine you're getting punched in the stomach. That tension that you create is going to keep your pelvis and your rib cage aligned as you descend into the squat. All right, from here, I'm going to get her to reach her arms forward, bring her head up to neutral, and a little bit of height through her upper back. Okay. To start the movement, we want her to load her hips. All right, now for a lot of people, they'll swing the hips backwards and they'll lose the weight in the front of the foot. What we want to do is pull ourselves into a hinge by using our hip flexors and our abs. So the cue that I like to use is find your heels with your hips and try not to leave your toes. All right, so in that position, we should have her hips slightly behind her heel. Her arches are strong because her knees are externally rotated. And then from this position here, she can begin to bend at the knee and drive the knee forward over the toe into the floor whilst pulling her bum towards her heels with her hamstrings. As she wants to come up, she's going to make sure she's grabbed her abs and pushes the floor away. We'll do that a couple more times because that's a lot of information. Check that she's stable in the frontal plane. So soft through the knees, strong arches with the knees rolled out. Exhale to find rib cage and pelvis, abs. She's going to load her hips behind her heels. And then keeping weight in the front of the foot, she's going to bring the knees in and use her hamstrings to pull herself down to the bottom of the squat. At the bottom of the squat, she's creating tension through her abs, maintaining that tension as she pushes the floor away. And if she does that, she should feel a really strong contraction through the glutes and the abs. I'm going to get her to face forward for a couple of reps. You want to just give me a few more, please, Dan? The angle that we're looking for with the knees is for them to travel in line with the middle toe. Come back up. Eye line should be fixed more or less straight ahead, which means she's got to look at the camera. And then from there, once the hips are loaded, we want to maintain this angle on her torso. If she's traveling down and we see the hips going too far back and the knees unable to travel further forward, this could be in her ankle, in which case we would elevate the heel to allow her to maintain her torso position whilst going through knee flexion. So pull your bum towards your heels and then push the floor away.